How do I bing that thing again? All right, we're going to call the meeting to order now that it's 4 o'clock. First off, I want to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 6 land and home of the Dakota and the Métis. Approval of the agenda. Oh, I just got to push that.
I move the approval of the agenda.
Thank you. And the vote is open. Nope. Now it is. Push the open button. Missing one. Councillor Lennox-Zapp. Are you there, Councillor Lennox-Zapp? Not active. Okay, we'll close and accept. And the motion is carried. Declaration of conflict of interest. We all know to hand in your forms. Adoption of the minutes. Oh. I pushed the wrong button. I should have pushed the back button. Good. I'll try not to push that button again. Yeah, that's what I did. Councillor Kilmer.
I'll move that.
Thank you. And that vote is open. Councillor Lennox Zapp, have you joined us yet? No, still missing one more. Thank you. That motion's carried. Delegations, we have none. Consent agenda. How do I go back to the main screen? Previous? Oh no, I gotta accept it.
Accept it,
And then what?
and then you just press the home button.
Yeah, that's what I thought I did.
Yeah.
Okay. Craig, sorry, having some technical issues. So consent agenda, Councillor Kilmer,
I'd like to pull 6.1.
6.1. Mayor Dion,
I'll move the other two items.
okay. And that vote is open. And we've moved the balance. So item 6.1, Councillor Kilmer.
I have a question for the Director of Financial Services. I'm just wondering, does this statement include all the itemized goods and services purchased via MasterCard?
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Lennox Zapp, can you hear us now? Councillor Lennox Zapp, are you there?
Yes, that technology problem seems to be resolved. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Kilmer, you have further questions?
No further, but I'll move 6.1.
You'll move 6.1, okay, thank you very much. No other discussion, we're gonna go to the vote for item 6.1. And that vote is open. Councillor Lennox Zapp?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That motion's carried. Okay, reports of administration and committees. Item 7.1, 5-year sanitation fees, verbal presentation, Jeff De Silva, Operations Manager. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council, for this opportunity to present to you tonight on our 5-year landfill rate schedule. Before I got started tonight, I just wanted to take a quick opportunity to introduce to you one of our sort of newest Public Works team members. To my right, you will see Todd Alexon. Todd's our new sanitation manager. So in the future, I would anticipate that this would mostly be a role taken up by Todd. Todd comes to us, he started in July, with about 20 years experience with the Ministry of Environment, as well as experience with the City of Saskatoon. So I guess going forward, if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns about the sanitation operation, certainly reach out to myself and Todd, and we'll definitely endeavor to get back to you on those. Okay, so the main purpose of the presentation tonight is you're certainly aware, administration is currently constructing a new landfill cell out at the landfill in order to secure long-term disposal space for municipal solid waste. Part of that defined scope of work for the project was to complete a tipping fee review and analysis in order to ensure that the rates charged at the landfill gates are sufficient in order to sustain the operation for the long term. In order to meet this goal, break-even cost is calculated. This is calculated using current tonnage that's accepted annually at the landfill, as well as operational costs, anticipated short, medium, and long-term capital investments, as well as long-term maintenance and operating or monitoring costs for the site. So as indicated in our report, the end result for the tipping fee analysis yielded a minimum break-even cost of $84 per ton at the site. Now, in order to assess how this stacks up for the city as comparing it to other landfills in the region, we pulled similar landfills across the province. You'll see in our report that our current rate of $75 per ton is at the lowest or on the low end of all of the rates charged at similar operations. And our proposed fee at the end of our 5-year schedule would put us at about the average of what's currently charged at other landfills. You'll also notice that we proposed the increase to get to that break-even minimum be brought in over a 5-year period. This is to allow time for adjustment to customers at the gate to absorb that cost increase, as well as to provide some stability in rates over the next 5 years. In the report, we've also included a 25-cent increase on the sanitation surcharge, which is, of course, is the sanitation charge that residents will see on their utility bills. Similarly, this fee increase is meant to balance the ability of the operation to absorb cost increases over the next 5 years, but also to maintain a relatively small increase on utility bills. I just side note that I think our typical increase over the past number of years has been on the order of about 50 cents. And finally, in the report, there was an expressed desire to ensure that demolition materials that are accepted at the city landfill from surrounding communities are either not filling up the landfill faster than desired, or that they are the cost associated with the disposal of that material is reflective of the long-term capital costs for, obviously, of course, future landfill cells. So for that, on that item, we've included a demolition surcharge proposal for City Council to review, which would see a $1,500 surcharge on all demolition material that was accepted from outside of city limits. As well as a proposal to update the penalty section of the bylaw, just to reflect the focus on ensuring that these charges are adequately captured at the gates. So that concludes my presentation. and would like to ask the first question.
Thanks for the presentation. Do we have any questions? Councillor Miller?
Yeah, so when we're doing the demolitions, are we like separating, do you know if they're separating like wood from cement and bricks, and are they all doing that separately and they go in different piles to make sure that we don't put it in the cell?
So the majority of loads would come in just as a single demolition load. My guess was that it would be very labor intensive to first strip the building of each separate material item. So currently it's coming in just as demolition waste, which does go into the cell.
Thank you.
Councillor Cody?
Yes, thank you very much. I will move the recommendation and just indicate that I think this is quite reasonable, actually, when you look at all of the other jurisdictions that we're in with. I think it's a fair deal. I think another thing that's good here is the $1,500 surcharge for people bringing in the likes of cabins from outer areas. And on top of that, of course, they still have to pay the tonnage. It's just a surcharge to bring it here. And I think that's a good thing. And the reason I say it's reasonable is because we are just in the process of building a $6 million touch landfill, so it makes quite a difference. And I think that they've done a good job here, and I think we should pass this and take it to budget.
The chart is what, yeah. Councillor Kilmer?
Thank you. My question is about the $1,500, and I appreciate what Councillor Cody was saying. But the $1,500 for the demolitions from outside of our city, I'm wondering if there is a up to this weight amount, because there's different sizes of buildings, and, you know, does 1,500 capture our intent to make it, you know, the size of a cabin normally, but not a major hotel in Saskatoon being, you know, becomes
Right,
cheaper?
right.
So, yeah.
That's a good question. The intent is, how we put it together was that you know, anything that's small, if you had like a garden shed, typically when if that were to be, you know, demolished and brought, it would likely just come in as kind of general construction waste. It's not something that would get flagged as a specific construction, like demolition product. Typically for demolitions of a house, you're dealing with a contractor, and they'll be pre-setting this with an account with the city. They'll likely be bringing multiple loads because an entire demolition of a cabin won't fit into a tandem. So if they're bringing in multiple loads, they'll be capturing that across the scale, basically in a formal manner.
Okay, so it would start out, if it were an in-city, that comes with a permit.
Correct.
Out of city comes with an account set up prior
Yes.
to coming.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Zerkowski?
Thank you. Jeff, one of the things that really irks our residents is when they go to the landfill with their half-ton and they need to use at least 2 of the water bills because the tonnage is set too low. What is it, 150?
150, correct.
150,
kgs,
yeah. So they end up using 2. So if this is a 5-year plan, and we've talked about this for the last few years, and you know, we've been asked to be patient, and if this is a 5-year plan, at what point do we say, you know, for our residents using the landfill, and the original intent was, you know, about a half-ton load. You're not going to put a whole lot of concrete in there, but what's reasonable is about a half-ton load. I think that's really too light, and if we're going to increase it starting next year to $13, I think we also need to look at increasing the weight when our residents go and use the landfill for just their household materials that they find in the yard, in the garage.
Sure.
Are we looking at that?
No, that wasn't on our radar as an item, but certainly something that administration could look at.
Okay. So what's the process to looking at that? Because we've chatted about it here. I know Councillor Miller brought it up last year. Is there another opportunity as we head into budget to have a chat about that? Or should we leave it with you? Or where should we have that, carry on that conversation?
You could certainly leave that with me, and with Todd and myself, and we can bring that forward as a report, giving you some information outlining the number of dumps used along those lines.
Thank you
and
for
that's an
that.
opportunity to have a chat.
And I really appreciate that. I think I just want to be clear, we've had lots of information. I think now it's time to make that change to increase that tonnage for our residents. Thank you.
Mayor Dion.
Well, I won't be supporting this report, strictly because I thought this was the year that we were going to correct the North Central Waste Management. To me, they're an outside user. Nowhere in their agreement or ever were they supposed to get a deal at the landfill. So I've been discussing it for the last year, and I thought we were going to correct it this budget year. I don't see why a resident in Birch Hills, just because they're a member of the Northwest, should get a deal at our landfill. We just spent $6 million. So I'm going to ask what happened to that. We'd put a request in, and we talked about this, and we did look up the agreement, and nowhere in the agreement with that agency did they have the right to get cheap access to the landfill. So I'm baffled that they're considered like a city resident. They're not. They live in Birch Hills, every other community. If you look at every community around us, the majority of them belong to that organization. So you wouldn't even need that one column, non-members. To me, there should be two fees, city residents and non-residents. And so I won't be supporting this, and I'm actually going to bring a motion forward at next council meeting that we bring back the other reports and ask for the opinion on why, going into this budget year, that we're still following the same old policy when we discussed it and said they didn't have the right to it and we should remove it. And so that's why I won't support this. It's time that people started paying their share. The Northwest pay no capital. Out of that $6 million, how much do they give us for capital? Nothing. So we have to collect that capital back in fees. And giving them a 50% reduction, I don't agree with. So I won't be supporting this report, and on Monday I'll be asking for further reports on why we continue this practice.
Sure. Would you like to respond to that, Jeff?
Yeah, that wasn't considered in this report. I understand that. Nothing beyond that.
That's a response, eh? No? Okay. Okay, Councillor Ogrodnik.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Jeff, thank you for the report. I agree somewhat with Councillor Cody. I like this idea that it's laid out. We have a 5-year plan. The charges surcharges, aren't great at 25 cents per year. I like what Mayor Dion said about city, non-city charges. I think we need to start doing that until we do become a region. If we want to become a region in Prince Albert, then let's be a region. But if we only want to be a region for certain things and not other things, then you know what? We're not a region. And so until the region comes together and starts agreeing that we are a region and some businesses are going to go into the RMs and some things are going to be in the city and we help fund and finance everything in the region, then that's what we should do. With respect to the 4 free drop-offs, they're not free actually, they're just no charge, because I mean we're paying for that. And just on a side note, I took 2 items to the dump or to the landfill on Saturday. One was an old stove and one was a barbecue, and I got charged 2 of my utility bill because it was 2 appliances. No, it wasn't heavy, it was just 2 appliances, so I got charged 2 drops or 2 times visiting the landfill. So, and I don't have a problem with that. It's 4 of them are I never use 4 in a year, and so the fact that I had to use 2 for that simple little drop is fine with me. But I want to say, I'm going to support this motion, and maybe we could make some amendments to it, talking about city and non-city, as Councillor, or as Mayor Dion had suggested. Thank you.
Councillor Head.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And thanks, Jeff, for your presentation and definitely, and for the report. I definitely think that, having some projections for the sanitation department to operate is something we should be doing. So the 5-year plan is, and we end up somewhere in the middle of the road. So I like that idea as well. It's not overly costly and it's not too low. So I can support the increases in that regard. I do question a little bit about the non-member fee and the member fees, because I know we had some conversation with some of the residents, when this came up before. I think there's a different sense from our RM of Prince Albert versus the Birch Hills. I mean, they are quite a bit different, and definitely, we need to maybe kind of balance out the member fees versus non-resident. I'm not sure how we do that. You're going to have your work cut out for you presenting something to this council in that regard. But I get it. I have a question about the demolition material disposal fee of $1,500. I'm getting the idea is that we either capture the right amount of money for those materials taking up space in our landfill, or we deter companies from even bringing it. That's kind of the idea. What is the comparison for the $1,500 in other cities as well? Because I don't see that in the report.
I don't know that other cities in particular have flagged this item as a concern to keep material out. I do know pricing generally for a city like Moose Jaw, part of their pricing scheme is likely to keep is likely to be in a competitive range with a city like Saskatoon or Regina or Swift Current, just in that they don't generate a big traffic one way or the other. So that's there often is that put a price to keep either the capital costs covered, or to deter people from making a long trip to get to the landfill.
Okay, well, thank you.
Councillor Zurkowski.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I hear what the mayor is saying, and I think because I sit on that board, North Central Waste Management Board, I think it's important that we hear what's been said tonight, and I think my preference is to pause for a moment and see if there's any other perspectives or any other information that we should have in front of us before we take a look at either passing this or looking at changing the access fee for the North Central Waste Management the members that are out there. I like what the mayor is saying. I'd like to jump in there a little further, and maybe there's some other perspectives there that we need to have in front of us before we just arbitrarily increase the fee or pass that fee as it is. So I like it. If there's no emergency to pass this tonight, I'd certainly be willing to bring this back after looking for some more information and some further conversations with our neighbors and with that organization itself.
Councillor Cody.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Minister. I can certainly agree with what the mayor has said, all right. But I think, as the gentleman over there has said as well, we should give it a little bit of a chance to, and we should talk to the folks at least, do that much. They are members, and they pay a fee each year and to the organization. So I think just give them a little opportunity. But I have no trouble with saying that non-members are non-members, and that they should pay a higher price. And I agree with that. And certainly, most of the people around are members. You've got the RM of Prince Albert is really not a member, and then there's others that are. So I think maybe if we were to pass this, if the mayor wishes to bring a notice of motion, I'd certainly be more than happy to prepared to support that. Let me just say a word about the $1,500 surcharge. really, the reason for that surcharge is because we don't want that product in our landfill. We don't want those cabins there. And secondly, the reason why we have it and a lot of other jurisdictions don't have it is we're in lake country. We're in lake country, and that's where all the stuff comes from. It comes from people making new cabins and stuff like that. So as a result of that, I'm certainly very much in favor of the $1,500. And you know, you can have a very small cabin and it'll be $1,500. You can have a massive cabin, it's $1,500. But you got to remember, at the end of the day, they still pay $154 a ton to bring it in. So a little guy doesn't pay nearly as much as the big guy does, as the big cabin does. So the fairness is in the 154 that they have to pay now, or 170 at 26. So there is fairness there on the small and the large. But we really put the 1,500 in, I think, just because we don't really want the product very badly. And if you're going to bring it, then you're going to have to help us out with the landfill costs. So that's really, I think, the reason it's there.
Mayor Dion.
I'm just going to add a little more to Council Cody. He's right on the money, except for he's missing one point that I can bring up. If you live in the Lakelands, you're going to demolish your cabin, you look up the bylaw, it says it must be hauled to the Prince Albert landfill. Must. And why is that? Because they don't want to fill their landfills. And so I believe if we have to take them, then they should pay for it. Because it's just like the non-member fee. No one is contributing to the capital that we just put out, the $6 million. And that's what the landfill is about, the capital that we have to put out to make these cells. So I actually wanted it at 2,500. I sawed it off to 15. I actually wanted it more once I seen it in their bylaws that they have to deliver these cabins to the PA landfill. And so, you know, neighbor to neighbor, I don't have a problem with that, but you're going to pay for that service. Thank you.
Councilor Zerkowski.
So Jeff, just in terms of process, if this passes today, it says the first recommendation be approved and adopted. So what's the process moving forward if this passes, and what's the timeline?
Well, so if I'm understanding your question correctly, so after this, we'd be bringing an amending bylaw to update the rates for January 1.
Okay.
And then should we receive a notice of motion to look at it more broadly, then that amending bylaw, that bylaw could be amended, I would imagine, at any point after that.
So rather than getting started on a bylaw, would you like us to pause on this, or would you like us to deal with that one category ad hoc in an ad hoc sort of a way? Because I think my preference is going to affect other categories.
Sure, my preference would be to have the bylaw ready for January 1st. I think we don't have a lot of council meetings left in between now and then, but the split out of different rates for different users would, I think that would be a pretty sizable subject, which would require a bit of time to prepare.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Any further questions or discussions on the motion? Hearing none, I'm going to call the question. Now votes open. Councillor Lennox-Zepp,
Yes.
okay, and the motion's carried. Item 7.2, Parita Memorandum of Understanding, 3-year extension, PowerPoint presentation. Craig Gittinger, Director of Planning and Development Services. Whenever you're ready, Director.
Thank you, members of council. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just give the City Clerk a few seconds here to get our presentation up on the screen. We good to go? Okay. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Yes, so thank you for the opportunity here to talk to you about our Prince Albert Regional Economic Development Alliance and what the next few years will look like. I've got a short PowerPoint presentation just to keep me on track, but it is informal, and obviously I'll answer any of the questions that you do have at the end of my short presentation. Just to remind you, in 2019, in March, we entered into a memorandum of understanding between the City of Prince Albert, our two neighboring RMs, Prince Albert and Buckland, Peter Ballantyne Development Corporation, Muscadet First Nation, and the town of Shellbrook. And that was for a 3-year term with the end goal of developing more of a regional approach when it comes to economic development. And I think Councillor Ogrodnik provided me with a really good segue into this report this evening, so I thank you for that. Through the past discussions, ultimately, to simplify things, the first 3 years have been very foundational in nature, and the next 3 years I'm very much looking forward to, because I think that's when we'll really see PA RETA get off of the ground and some real tangible results. It wasn't until December of 2019 when we hired our CEO, Ashley Charles. So essentially, she had 2 years to get to the point where we're at today and take care of a few monumental tasks. She's been very, very busy. Obviously, setting up a corporate venture such as PA RETA has been quite the endeavor. We developed the board. We did a call out for membership of the board. And ultimately, we developed an operational plan, done a lot of relationship building. We've met with a number of different ministries to have some introductory discussions, the Chamber of Commerce, the Construction Association, et cetera, et cetera. We developed and got approved for a Can Export federal grant for $15,000. We're in the middle of writing an RFP for that with a focus on investment attraction. So essentially, what types of investment we want in our community, where should the dollar be spent, and what type of added value will we have with that investment to our community. So you'll be seeing that over the next month or two. And perhaps one of the largest projects, endeavors, is the dissolution of the Prince Albert Tourism and Marketing Bureau, which has now been done, and it's also now been rebranded as well. And as you recall, City Council has a separate agreement with PA RETA to manage tourism to the tune of about $140,000. So for one person, one CEO, that's been a lot of work, and I think we can all be very proud that we're just having these discussions, these regional economic development discussions, and we've got a real pointed direction on how we move forward over the next few years. As you know, the original agreement was for a 3-year term. That's why I'm in front of you today, and my request is to extend that for an additional 3-year term, and that will continue over time. Some other highlights of PA RETA to date. Again, Tourism Prince Albert has been formally established. We've got a new logo designed. If you take a look at the Facebook page, you can see what that looks like. Tourism Center operations, obviously COVID threw a big wrench into the plans of tourism, but we were able to reopen in the summer of 2021. Ashley was able to scramble and put together some great summer staff, and they did a really, really good job. And we hired an employee for some daily operations there. And we've also recently hired a marketing and business development coordinator in just September. So just a few weeks ago, a gentleman by the name of Dwayne Kripp. He's one of just a great community champion. He's been involved in the community for many, many years, and he's got a very in-depth knowledge of marketing, and I think it was a really good pickup for PA RETA. So I'm really excited for him to be on board as well. Tourism videos. We got approved by $20,000 to do some tourism videos, focusing on Saskatchewan and narrowed down a little bit further on Prince Albert. We produced those in collaboration with Tourism Saskatchewan and Phoenix Group, and I believe those videos are actually almost done, so you'll be able to view those in the next couple of weeks, and they highlight some different themes for Tourism Prince Albert. Tourism Relief Fund. Ashley, our CEO, is currently in the middle of applying for a federal grant up to $500,000. I realize that's a very big number, but we have to be prepared for that. It could be anywhere up to that number. So the proposal itself includes potential renovations to the tourism center, more videos showcasing event hosting and capabilities at a national stage, online apps to help showcase our regional themes, regional gems, an Aboriginal interactive learning center, signage and lighting, new Prince Albert signage by the flower bed, and also the installation of some additional flag posts to be inclusive towards the Indigenous community in Prince Albert. Again, please keep in mind that this initiative is part of that separate contract between Prince Albert City Council and PA RETA. So if we do happen to be approved for this type of endeavor, that agreement and those projects would certainly be brought to City Council for the consideration. Our next step is a really big one. We're in the infancy stages of developing a strategic plan. We've hired consultant Jennifer Brooks. That name might sound familiar. We actually hired her a few years ago, right when we started talking about what a regional approach to economic development would look like. So she facilitated those discussions, and she was drove that forward and was the consultant that we hired for the framework. And she's absolutely fantastic, and she's got some meetings coming up, some strategic planning meetings as early as 2 weeks from now. A few focuses of what she'll be looking at: job creation. So she'll be looking at training, workforce development, what types of sectors shall we prepare for and should we be looking at when it comes to economic development. And she's got ties to Sask Polytech and the tourism sector there. Revenue generation. Why do businesses want to come to our region? Along with some different options for membership and sponsorship with PA RETA. Collaboration with provincial agencies, so looking at the tech sector, the agriculture sector, forestry certainly should be up there as well. So looking at the different economic development avenues we should be looking at as a region. And investment attraction as well. Those past few slides, not a heck of a lot of detail there, but that is strategic in nature. That is the point of the strategic plan. So that'll, out of that process, we as a city, we as a region will really be pointed in the right direction of where we can focus our efforts and where Dwayne and Ashley can focus their efforts on the next 3 years. One thing I have heard is that PA RETA should be public. You know, we should celebrate economic development. We want the public to know that PA RETA exists. And I've heard that throughout the organization and throughout the community. So that's one thing I'm looking forward to is when I say PA RETA, that people will know what it is. People always ask me, you know, what has PA RETA done? They've done a ton, but frankly, I don't want to be asked that question. I want people to know why PA RETA is in place and know some of those, some of the projects that they're working on. The Prince Albert RETA welcome package. What does the region have to offer the individual or family that is looking to move into the city? We're looking at an economic advantage package as well. So why do businesses want to move into the region? And we're also looking at the development of a new website, which is partially done. And we're looking at tying the loose ends of that up over the next month or so. I've already touched on strategic planning and tourism. So again, we'll be looking at marketing and event hosting, sports and culture. We're at a very, very exciting time in Prince Albert when it comes to sports and culture. And we want to know how that relationship between the city, the region, and PA RETA can be leveraged to bring more events to our city. And Aboriginal history and culture will be a main focus as well. We'll be looking at capacity building, capital enhancement, quality of life. I touched on the marketing strategy and how to attract people to our region. And that, again, will be happening over the next couple of weeks with a strategic planning session, I believe, happening the first week of November. And that'll take, the plan is to have that done by the end of the year and present it to you. So that's my presentation. My ask is that we approve the extension of PA RETA for an additional 3 years. It is the same agreement that we entered into in 2019 with termination clauses, reports back to City Council every 6 months, but I would suggest that we do that much more often. And once this is approved by the city, I expect our partners to follow suit, our founding members. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, and I'd be happy to answer your questions.
Thanks, Director. Mayor Dion.
I'll move the recommendation, and I have some comments. I'm really excited. It took a while to get set up, but Some of the hurdles we had, of course, was when you got to demolish, I'd guess the word demolish is the right thing, another board. There's quite a process to that because of the assets and everything else. I'm really pleased with the new hire, Dwayne Kripp. As everyone knows him, he's going to really help us. And I can share something that Prita did that I just got off the phone, actually, just about an hour before the meeting, is through Prita. The new company used to be called Western Diversification, but it's now called Economic Diversification or something. It used to be Western. I don't know what it's called now. I just had a Zoom meeting with the president, and through Prita and through the city of PA, they're going to supply $750,000 through Polytechnique for training for the forestry industry. And so that really pleased me because that was a request that we didn't put in. They heard about the OSB plant and a few other things that were going. And at their meeting, they reached out to us to say that they want to be involved. This is job creation, and that they have this education fund, and that we're eligible up to $750 in job training in the forestry industry. So that kind of excited me. And I do believe with that and the other building announcements that we're going to say shortly, that PA is really looking good to take off economically in the next couple of years. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Dion. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. I'll open the vote. Okay, and the vote's open. Councillor Lennox Epp?
Yes.
Okay, vote's closed. Motion is carried 8-1. And unfinished business, we have none. And adjournment, motion to adjourn. Councillor Kilmer.
I move to adjourn.
Okay. And that vote is open. Councillor Lennox Epp?
Yes.
And we are adjourned. Half an hour.
Thank you.